Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever you may happen to be. Um, this is the Chicken Little Show, where we predict that the sky is falling. And if we do this long enough, eventually the sky will fall. I went to school, and in schools there are books, and I read these books. I got interested in history and read a lot of books. Related to our current situation, the planet Saturn, every 400 years, makes its closest approach to planet Earth. And the magnetism and gravity of that huge planet have an effect on the Earth. And the theory is twofold. The organic film on Earth is the receiving mechanism for communications from other planets. And the crust of the Earth is subject to being moved around, broken up by gravity from other planets. No one knows what gravity is yet. It seems to me to be an energy flow from some area of the universe that we are unaware of. But if you take a subwoofer speaker, for example, and hold it here and put a very heavy wrench, the wrench will just stay there. Which to me means there's a force going that way that is stronger than the Earth's gravity. In these 400-year periods, what we get, and this is documented all the way back for thousands of years, bad weather, like cooler weather than normal, crop-destroying weather, hail, rain, floods, lightning storms, lower temperatures so the crops can't grow, pestilence by insects who are starving, and rodents, and plagues, and earthquakes. And what this has caused, besides the physical disasters, is usually there's a change of government, because the people say, if you're so high and mighty above us and in control of all the power and money, if you can't handle this, maybe we need somebody else. So regime change is a part of this. We have one of these coming up October 23rd, 2023, so next year, plus a few months, a year and a half. And that will be bad enough, but at that particular time, there is a 10,000-year conjunction coming up on that date, which will include the 4 outer gas giants: Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune, are going to be aligned in the solar system in such a way as their combined gravity will be pointed at us. And just before that, the Earth will be behind the Sun, and as the Earth comes around from behind the Sun, it becomes exposed to that graphitic conjunction, and we're going to have what looks like end times. And this is also documented every 10,000 years. This happens. Usually it's an almost extinction level. It's an end of civilization event, anyway. But the everything will be worse. The crust will burst, If there's water over here, this tsunami will go that way. 900 miles an hour for 200 or 300, even a couple of thousand feet high even. Volcanoes will go off, the ring of fire will go off, there'll be smoke in the sky, which will poison people and life in the sea and dim the sun, so the crops, if any, will not grow as well in the ensuing years. The end of every civilization to date has been famine because of war or weather or both. And when there's famine, people die off. And when people die off, the civilization is lost. What we try to save is the good old songs, the good old recipes, the philosophy, all the love, all of the efforts that were made by fathers and soldiers to save and perpetuate a culture is just swept away. And we have to start again. I think that the Great Pyramid in Egypt, which is at the center point of the land masses of the earth, that can't be an accident. You have all of Europe over here, all of Asia over here, and all of Africa down there. I think the pyramid was to ground out some of these forces, probably more the organic and mental ones. And the pyramid is connected to 1,700 other pyramids around the planet, which are now buried. And buried with material that's not scooped up from around them, but from hundreds of miles away, which means it was picked up and dropped from the air. So that civilization was ended. This may or may not be true. I can't prove this, but the pyramid is so big and heavy, so it can take the pounding. So about 18 months from now, we're going to have what would look like end times in the Bible, compounded by weather warfare, which has been demonstrated last year all over the world. There were extremely bad weather events in Europe, all the way down to snow in the desert and winds so strong they were blowing cars down the street. So on top of whatever would happen naturally, there's going to be weather weapons applied to make it even worse. And the food supply chain is being crashed all over the world. This is being done intentionally, and once that gets started, there is no food grains being grown and shipped for the animals, which means the animals will have to be slaughtered, which means those animals won't have any children. So there'll be meat for a while, but it takes 8 years to recover a meat stock animal herd. And that will take us to 2030, which is Agenda 2030, where we'll be eating smashed up grasshoppers and lab-grown meat. Information about this is being kept off of any large platform. So the public in general is not being told about this. And it gets a lot worse. So if you remember, if you've never heard of the Georgia Guidestones, somebody paid a lot of money to have a granite facility built. And it says they want to reduce the world's population to 500 million, which means 7 billion people have to go. Or 1 in 15 will survive. Is that you? It's worse than Russian roulette with 2 bullets. I've been trying to warn people about this since 2011. And we're down to the last year and a half, and it's barely poking its head out into the mainstream. And cozied right up against this is we have antibiotics to kill single-cell organisms, diseases. But for some reason, I've never been able to find out how to stop a virus. The reason for this is not that we are too stupid to figure that out, but the warmongers have secretly coveted in the dark viral weapons which will kill the enemy. And for years they've been working on, if we could just find a race-specific killer virus, we'd be in heaven. Well, this has been done actually. And the leading country in this is Israel. And it's been done all over the world, people working together, many countries working on this. And now we have this CRISPR technology where anyone with $1,500 can make their own viruses. And at some point, this is going to become the new reality of people throwing viruses at each other like kids in a snowball fight. And this is happening now during this time period. So things are going to get extremely bad and stressful for survival of most of the human race. And that is the plan by some people. They are taking advantage of the astrological disaster to get rid of all the useless eaters and take over the world and have 500 million slaves to hoe cabbages for them. Which would be a great movie if it wasn't real. The political aspect of this is shown quite clearly in a book called 1984, which was required reading in the school I went to. There are 3 movies, and there's a New York play, and you can have it read to you online. And it was written as both a warning, and apparently the those above us are required to tell us what they're going to do. So this was released as this is where you're headed, is a world controlled by television news, totalitarian governments, shortage of everything. There's a constant war. And when the main antagonist explains to the hero what's going on, he says the government is engaged in a perpetual war against its own citizens, which is what's happening now. And if it wasn't for television, news, and YouTube, people wouldn't be able to access what's happening. You'd just be able to look out your window, talk to your neighbors, like it used to be. So we are there, and the war in Europe is a cover for other things, which is why it doesn't go anywhere. All the news is the war, the war, the war, and there is no other news. And when that happens, things are being passed by legislations at 12 o'clock on Sunday night when there's only the right number of people there to pass it, and no one's told about it. Or it's a 3,000-page document which no one takes the time to read. Because probably over 90% of the people who are elected are not there for why we imagine they're there. And I did see a video by some of the main proponents of saying what's going on is unnecessary. They were at a meeting with the people who are causing this, and she said, "Isn't this sort of illegal?" And the answer was, yes, but by the time they figure it out, we'll be long gone. Which is a criminal thing. Must have, can't work. So I keep making these things. It's very hard to find a placement for this kind of rhetoric because it's been expunged from YouTube and Reddit and Twitter and any place with broad reach, and the places with smaller reach. The people accessing this are already the converted, preaching to the converted. So I am the gypsy woman with my crystal ball. And many people see what's coming, either through collating the news or having visions. So if you're here listening to this, make sure you prepare for beyond the absolute worst. And unfortunately, don't let anybody know, because they're going to come knocking on your door to take your stuff because they didn't prepare. And they're going to be hungry, cold, desperate. And I own a medical research company, and I have contacts and information all over the place. I actually do fear the zombie apocalypse, which seems ridiculous. But why do they make movies about that? This again is a pre-warning and a combination of a new kind of manufactured bioweapon, which affects the mind severely, and something called voice-to-skull technology. They can beam voices using microwaves, and your skull will pick them up and turn them into sound again, and you hear voices in your head. And if there's no food and you're starving, and you're extremely sick and made crazy, there's your zombie mob. So it could get that bad, and it is predicted to be that bad. It's starting now. We're getting food riots in Sri Lanka, Peru, some places in Europe. And it just appears little things like in Italy they can't get steel to make cans, so there are no cans, so the Italian tomato crop is going to have to rot in the fields. So no spaghetti sauce. And spaghetti sauce is everyone's backup for if there's no food around, we'll just make spaghetti. Well, no sauce. And the wheat crops are down because of bad weather, and the wheat that is grown can't be fertilized because the price of fertilizer has gone up 10 times. And the truckers can't truck it because they can't get gas. And there are hundreds of little items like that. They're going to all fall into a cascade, which will lead to worldwide famine, which is, as I said earlier, circling back, as Jen has taught us to do, the end of every civilization to date has been famine. And I'll say again, the most dangerous phrase during this period will be a little girl saying, "Daddy, I'm hungry." And Daddy's going to lose his civilization very rapidly and come to your door. So prepare and get ready to move out of the city. You still have a year and a half to figure out where you can go. The elites are building underground bunkers for a reason. They're very expensive and they're very boring to live in there, which means they're hoping to rise something out.